Cal Ripken, the Orioles Hall of Famer. How much do you follow the NFL? You in a fantasy league?
No. So I watch it. I'm a Ravens fan. I usually go to most of their games, but I haven't followed it very close this year so far.
Difference in athleticism when it comes to baseball and football. Aside from the obvious of you get hit hard in football, but do you see any the correlation there when the athleticism? When we talk about a five-tool player in baseball, we don't say, well, what would he be like in the NFL? We'll look at a basketball player like LeBron James and say he could play. But do you see any the correlation there?
I have a little perspective. I had a bunch of the Raven guys over to play basketball. And to me, I marvel at their physical abilities. They're the most explosive, they're the fastest, they're the strongest. Adalius Thomas walks on the court, and the ball squirts out. He gets the ball, and he goes up without even getting loose and attempts a 360. And so those things just, made me marvel. So I don't know. The football players don't have very good baseball swings in general. And so, or basketball players. The argument is which one is the greatest athlete, and basketball players get a lot of play for that. I saw Patrick Ewing swing a bat one time. That didn't look too good.
But the trait of hand-eye coordination, hitting a baseball, I think the consensus is it's the toughest thing to do in any sport. Would you say that's fair, or are you going to be biased being a baseball player?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it came pretty easy for me. So the hand-eye coordination, it is difficult because of the failure rate.
But why didn't it work for Michael Jordan? What did he not have as a baseball player?
Well, I think Michael missed development from the age of 16 until 31. So that's 15 years. When you learn to hit a guy throwing 95 or you learn to hit breaking balls, it's all about seeing those reps. And you first learn how to hit 40 miles an hour, then 50, and then 60. He probably left the game, when guys were throwing 75 or 79. And then he tried to come back into the game when he goes right to AA when people are throwing 95 miles an hour. That's a huge development loss. I thought as a big league professional baseball player, it took me about 1,000 at-bats to really figure out how to hit a breaking ball and how to hit, a really good fastball. So, without those reps, you just can't jump back in and expect to do it.
Did you ever not see a pitch? It was thrown so hard?
There were times when I thought my eyes were bad, yeah. When you're struggling and you're staring out there and then the ball comes in and you really didn't see it. It's a blur, but most of the time that's because you were moving or you were just in a bad place. I had a teammate once in A-ball decide he wanted to close his eyes right when the pitcher got ready to throw, just to see what the sensation was like and how long it seemed like the ball was in air, because it happened so fast. And I would never have the guts to do that, but he did it, and he said it's surprising how long it is. Interesting perspective.
He's Cal Ripken, the Orioles Hall of Famer, joining us on the show. You're making some headlines here, Cal.
I am?
Yeah, you go on Rich Eisen's podcast and you hint at managing. Now all of a sudden I got columnists in the Washington Post talking about you managing. Why don't you just come out and say, I would like to manage? It feels like you want to, but you're waiting for somebody to. And do you want to be asked?
No. Well, you have to be asked. I'm not lobbying by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not throwing my name out there, but it is interesting. Everyone asks me, are you getting the itch to come back? And then I say, and I've been very consistent with my answers all the way through, is for this time period in my life, up until I got my kids off to college, that was my focus. I mean, over the years since I've retired, I've had conversations with baseball general managers. From time to time, they've asked me if I wanted to interview for a managing job, and it wasn't the right time in your life. I was intrigued, but if you're not really willing to do it, why go through the process of it? So now that I'm in a different phase of my life, if somebody were to have a conversation with me, or somebody thought that I would be right for a spot, I'd explore it. But I don't know if I would take it. I'm smart enough to say I'd listen. So it is interesting how, little things about me, even though from my perspective it's been very consistent all the way across the board, it's created a lot of momentum here, and it's caused me to have to react to it. But yeah, if somebody wanted me or somebody thought that I'd be right for the position, then at this stage of my life, I'd listen.
But you have job openings now. I would want you to be aggressive. If I'm a GM or an owner, and all of a sudden the Nationals, that job is going to be open. Davey Johnson is out. I would want you to say, I would love that job, and I would, I think it's a great job potential there. I know the area. I know that team. I'm ready to go with something like that. Then I know that you're committed to it. Instead of saying, hey, you want to come in and talk? Yeah, I'll come in and talk, but I'm not sure I want. I don't want to. You never did anything half-assed when you played, and I don't think you do that as a manager. But I would want you being aggressive in wanting.
But I don't think that's half-assed. Being so if you're available, or if somebody thinks you're available, then they have to want to talk to you. You're not controlling the process. Yeah, can you put yourself out there? Can you?
Well, Dusty Baker is. Dusty said, "I will manage again." He got fired by the Reds.
Well, that's how Dusty chooses to do it. To me, I'm still in the baseball inner circles. I still talk to all the people. So all the guys that I've talked to that have asked me before, or that have wondered what I was thinking about, they know who I am. They know what I know about baseball. So if somebody thinks I'm right for the process, then I'll listen to it. And if they ask me to go through the process, that I'd be inclined to consider that.
What would make
but I'm not lobbying. I'm not using the media to say, hey, baseball world, I'm ready. I've never done that, and
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
Yeah. What would make you a good manager?
It first starts out with being a good baseball guy. You got to know how it all works, and know how it all comes together.
Are you patient?
I think overall I'm patient. Yeah.
Because if I need a day off, are you going to be lenient with me, even though you never took days off?
Yes, of course. I think each the manager has to have a relationship, or has to understand each and every player on his team, and understand what his contributions are, and what makes him go, and what his needs are.
But what's more important, being a manager, managing the game, or managing people, personalities, egos?
I think there's two parts. I mean, there's a big part about managing people. Joe Torre probably was the best at doing that. Mm-hmm. But in the end, there's still strategies and evaluations, and who is your everyday players, who are your role players, how's your bullpen composed, who pitches when you're winning, who pitches when you're losing, how often can they pitch. I mean, there's strategies in the game that your decisions as a manager affects your ability to win the next game. So you have to be conscious of all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, it's about managing people and getting them to pull in the right direction.
What would your dad think?
What would my dad think about what?
You managing.
The prospect of me managing?
Yeah. Or advice he would give you?
I think that he would like it.
Didn't it eat him up, though, those losses when he was managing?
Well, it wasn't a good time for him to take a job. He waited in line behind Earl, and then they chose to go to Joe Altobelli when they brought him back. And Joe inherited a good team, and we won the World Series the next year. And then Earl came back, and then we weren't as talented as a team when they decided to give my dad a chance. So that was a rebuilding opportunity. So I'm sure he looked at it the same way he looked at the minor leagues, that he was developing for the future. And his time went out. His time ran out pretty quickly.
He's Cal Ripken, the Orioles Hall of Famer. You got TBS here with the exclusive coverage of the National League Championship Series. Begins Friday with the Dodgers-Cardinals, and you'll be in the booth with Ernie and Ron Darling throughout the National League Championship Series. I do like the relationship with you and Darling. I think it's really, really developed. I am curious. I talked to Don Mattingly yesterday about what he sees with Kershaw. He stood in there, not swinging, but just stood there at the plate to see what it looks like, feels like there. What is it about Kershaw that we're lumping him in, not just the best pitcher of this generation, we're going back generations here, Cal?
Well, it's interesting. I had the same conversation with Donnie Mattingly because when we played, you had a perspective from the batter's box, and then you could understand if a guy would hide the ball a little bit, or there was a hesitation, or the ball would jump on you. Because just because it says 95 or 96 on the radar gun, some 95 or 96 seem to be light, some seem to be heavy, and some get on you. I would guess, and I would go along with Mattingly on this, and you don't get the real feel unless you roll the cages back and it's right in the middle of when all the people are there. But there's a little bit of a hesitation in Kershaw's move, or his move to the plate, and he hides it, and then he comes through with a fury that the ball not only is hard and velocity-wise, but it just gets past you. And then he's got that big curveball. And then he's figured out this slider that is that spins and it breaks big as well, but it's a harder pitch. So he has a lot of weapons, and when he's commanding his fastball, that makes his breaking ball all that much better. So he's almost Mr. Automatic. When you're thinking to start a game, he's going to be into the 6th or 7th inning and the 8th inning every single time out. I don't think it was that big of a risk to bring him back on 3 days. And I think the way that they handled that by getting it out there early in internal meetings was good.
Yeah.
So it got Kershaw comfortable with it. And he did give him a chance to win. The defense didn't play too well behind him. And so I would imagine if they did play better behind him, you'd probably look at that move as a great success, because Kershaw probably would have pitched another inning in that game, and they would have been in the driver's seat instead of having to come from behind.
Before I let you go, I've asked this to a couple of guests here recently, including John Smoltz. If you're starting a team right now with anybody, who are you building your team around?
Well, I'm of the opinion the number one starter is the most irreplaceable guy. You start to build around that. It's kind of strange because a lot of people would think you build with a shortstop or you build with a big hitter. But number one pitcher. So I would say Kershaw, with his age and what he's accomplished, he's right there. A couple of years ago, people were talking about Verlander. But that type of a pitcher that you can build around, because he takes on the role of the number one and makes it easier for all the other guys in the staff.
What about hitter?
Which hitter?
Yeah. Would you take Harper or Trout?
That is interesting. Trout seems to be putting up the bigger numbers right now. I like the potential of Harper, though. And then you got that Manny Machado guy over in Baltimore that is very raw in some ways, but very refined and polished in other. And I know that J.J. Hardy's going to be there for a couple more years, but he's the kind of person you'd want to be able to take a glimpse at shortstop on too, because his arm and his skills are that good. So, yeah, there are three good ones. You couldn't go wrong with any one of those picks.
Well, maybe you could help Harper in his career, his development.
I could. I'm sure I could.
If you wanted the job.
That's true.
If they wanted you.
I have all kinds of jobs right now.
Hey, good to visit with you. And tell Ernie Johnson I said hello, and we'll be watching. Thank you, Cal.
Thank you very much, Dan.
All right, Cal Ripken Jr.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.